woman running up to the door of a house, pleading for help.
A terrifying kidnapping.
We don't know what's going to happen to her.
A young boy in grave danger.
He's making a scene, he's throwing rocks.
He's terrified.
Raiding the place of designer goods by the fistful.
Brazen high-end robberies.
Grab as many high-priced items as you can and go.
Right smack in the middle of the afternoon.
And a woman's bravery
I was protecting a friend.
comes with an unthinkable price.
And she is viciously attacked.
You will be found, you will be arrested, and you will face criminal prosecution.
Shocking crimes caught on camera. A woman runs for her life as a doorbell camera records.
An alleged kidnapping caught on camera.
This video is heartbreaking.
On a quiet suburban street in the dark early morning of New Year's Day, a terrifying scene unfolds.
This car pulls up and stops. A woman gets out and she starts running towards the door.
She's knocking on the door frantically, trying to get someone's attention. A male individual exits the same vehicle and approaches her.
She needs help.
She's got nowhere to go. She's terrified. You can hear it in her voice.
You clearly hear her say, "Stop, Darnell."
The woman seems to know her attacker, but who is he and why is he doing this?
As a police officer, I've had many experiences where I've had footage like this. It never gets easier to look at it.
We don't know what he wants. We don't know what's going to happen to her.
No one hears her scream until hours later when the homeowner discovers the disturbing footage on his Ring camera.
When he sees this video, he's probably traumatized. Someone feels incredibly helpless when they can't help someone who needs them, especially when they're literally at their doorstep begging for help.
Horrified, he immediately calls police.
If this is an abduction, you only have a small window to get her back. The more time that passes, the more dangerous the situation becomes for her.
This could be a case of trafficking. He could be someone who is exploiting her, who's abusing her.
Police share the video with the public.
Home surveillance showing a woman running up to the door of a house, pleading for help, attacked by a man and dragged away just seconds later.
What we are able to show you is still pretty disturbing, so a warning to our viewers.
Police are on the hunt right now for the woman and the kidnapper, asking for your help.
Officers received many tips. Fortunately, the footage is pretty clear. You can see both of the individuals' faces. It didn't take long for someone to realize who they were.
The next day, police are able to determine that the suspect's name is Darnell Rogers.
And it turns out this is no random act of violence.
Darnell Rogers is the partner of this victim and the father of her child.
What we later learned is they were at a New Year's Eve party together. There was alcohol involved, and on the way home, there was a verbal argument.
And she was afraid for her safety, so she decided to flee from that situation.
And that's what we caught on footage.
What's not caught on camera is perhaps the most shocking and disturbing part of this story.
Their baby was in the car while all this is happening.
This woman is so desperate to get away from her abusive partner, she leaves her baby behind in the car. The baby is unharmed. One day after the incident, Darnell Rogers is arrested. He pleads guilty to 1 count of coercion and 1 count of battery domestic violence.
These surveillance systems are so helpful for us in following up, in countering the crimes, to combat these violent crimes in nature.
But at sentencing, there's an unexpected twist. The victim pleads with the judge for leniency.
When you're traumatized and physically and emotionally broken down by your partner, the impacts are very complex. She's probably responding to the effects of that long-lasting trauma.
In court, she says, "I know what happened that night is not who he really is." And she says that if he goes to prison, the absence will take a toll on their daughter. The judge gives him 3 years probation.
It's hard to ignore a mother's pleas. It's hard to ignore a battered person's pleas. It's likely that he got leniency because she asked for it.
And this troubling video is an important reminder to anyone suffering in silence.
You know, this situation is horrible, and if you or someone out there you know is going through a similar situation where they're involved in domestic violence, do yourself and your family a favor and get out of it as soon as possible. If this person has done it once to you, they can do it again, and nobody deserves this.
It's also alarming when innocent children don't feel safe walking home alone. This video is a parent's worst nightmare, and it has millions of views. It all begins on a Thursday night in suburban Salt Lake City.
10-year-old Graydon is walking home from basketball practice just 2 doors down from his own house. He's walking along, he looks back, and this sedan with 2 or 3 guys pulls up next to him, telling him to get in the car. Clearly, Graydon has spidey sense. He knows something is wrong.
Graydon picks up his pace, but so does the car.
Who are these guys? What do they want with this 10-year-old boy?
The strangers in the car try to entice Graydon with candy.
It's something we've all grown up hearing. Don't take candy from strangers.
It's terrifying to think that there are still criminals out there trying to lure kids in with candy.
With his front door in view, Graydon races up the steps to get inside, but the door is locked.
He starts calling for his mom, which breaks your heart to hear, because your parents are the only people you think can save you. Hearing him scream like that for his mother, you clearly know he's terrified.
The white sedan is right at the edge of the family's property line.
Whoever is in that car is parked and waiting there for a reason, and you can see them there in the distance to the right of Graydon on the surveillance camera.
And just when you think it can't get worse, the car suddenly goes straight towards him.
Those lights come on, and here comes that car again. You wonder if someone's gonna jump out and grab Graydon.
But that's when this young boy bravely fights back.
He's making a scene, he's throwing rocks, not only for defense, but being as loud and rambunctious as possible.
It's clear that Graydon has been taught well by his parents about what to do in this situation. He's trying to alert anyone that there are strangers in this neighborhood and he needs help.
Now, Graydon sees his chance to escape.
He's a really smart kid, too, running straight to a neighbor's house for help.
Which is luckily unlocked. He runs in, locks the door behind him.
Graydon is safely inside, but the car doesn't leave. It pulls into another driveway and waits.
How fast can a child be abducted? In a matter of seconds? Minutes?
Whoever is in the car that has been following Graydon, they refuse to leave, even after he takes refuge in a neighbor's house.
Can you imagine if that neighbor's door was locked as well?
Then, after a few tense minutes, the car finally drives away. Graydon's parents are so horrified, they shared the doorbell video online and with the media.
Less than 200 feet. I mean, if kids can't walk 2 doors down at 6 o'clock at night, I mean, that's scary. Hopefully we can find him.
You know, he's a smart kid and he's a fighter.
This could have gone completely the opposite way. Graydon could have been abducted and Graydon's parents might have never seen him again. But luckily, he is safe.
Police still don't know who was in the car or why they targeted Graydon, and the case remains unsolved. But it's an eye-opener for all parents and their neighbors.
They're in their neighborhood. You never think the worst possible scenario on your street.
Luckily in this situation, it seemed that Graydon had a good relationship, was able to rush into his neighbor's house. They were able to save him. If you see kids in your neighborhood, you gotta be able to help. And so it's important that you get to know them.
Having good neighbors can also be helpful when your business is targeted by criminals.
Grab as many high-priced items as you can and go.
This is broad daylight.
Everyone flees the store.
New York City has some of the world's most famous luxury stores.
This is high-end shopping. This is Balenciaga.
Too high-end for me.
And that makes them prime targets for criminals. Here, a seemingly innocent customer stops in to browse.
It's just a normal day. A woman comes into the shop. She starts looking around like she's looking at handbags, and then she asks for a certain size in a shoe. The worker goes to the back to find that shoe.
Little does the employee know, it's a setup.
The first person who walks into the store uses a distraction method of sorts.
This new surveillance video shows how it all went down.
While the worker is occupied in the back, a whole swarm of thieves descends on the store.
The rest of her accomplices come into the store and start grabbing everything they can in a matter of about 24 seconds.
The woman and her accomplices manage to snag 90 grand in merchandise.
They jump into a car, and then it's a high-speed chase. They're being chased down the street by cops. It gets up to over 100 miles per hour.
Police call off the chase out of concern for local residents.
High-speed chases are incredibly dangerous.
But luckily, the escape effort goes sideways.
The robbers crash the car up. They all get out on foot. They try to flee, but they're eventually captured, all except one. I hope they find that one woman, because clearly she might be the ringleader if she was the one that was brazen enough to go in and ask for the shoe in the first place. And she's probably committing these crimes in other places, so hopefully she's captured.
Her accomplices are charged with grand larceny, criminal possession of stolen property, and of a controlled substance. These high-end grab-and-goes are an all too familiar scene.
A lot of us watch heist films. If you're in and out as fast as possible, the likelihood you can get away is much higher.
This video captures a group clearing a store within minutes.
4 men busting into the Chanel store on Tuesday and raiding the place of designer goods by the fistful.
Robberies like this can happen anytime, day or night. This one was right smack in the middle of the afternoon.
The security guard confronted one of the people in the group, and he actually said to her, "What are you gonna do, shoot me?"
After a brave security guard confronts a group of thieves who are raiding a Chanel store, they bolt into a getaway car before police can get there.
This group stole 12 wallets, 32 handbags that were worth $200,000.
The high-end heist quickly hits the news.
A wild robbery caught on camera.
Here's some new video. It's from inside a Chanel store in Soho. A grab-and-go robbery unfolding in the middle of the day yesterday.
Grab-and-go thefts are notoriously hard to solve, but this time there's a glimpse of the license plate on the getaway car.
In this case, investigators were able to track the vehicle down and figure out exactly who it belongs to. It belongs to a rental company. It was later revealed that possibly phony documents were used.
It's a dead end. But then one of the suspects talks about the robbery online.
Social media is so funny. People can't help but brag online. And this guy said he actually stole so many handbags, he could open up his own boutique.
That leads police right to this man, Eric Spencer. He's convicted of conspiracy to commit robbery, among other charges, and faces up to 40 years in prison. His partners in crime remain at large. They may make for movie-like viral video, but they take a toll on innocent employees.
I think these grab and goes, they're called victimless crimes because people think that insurance covers everything. But what they don't realize is the trauma from the people who are in the store, that is not victimless.
That's what happens in San Francisco, where a restaurant full of people witness a traumatic event.
A man started yelling violent threats.
This story goes viral because of the brave young woman at the heart of it.
This is a video that is widely shared on social media and really gained a lot of attention.
You will be found, you will be arrested, and you will face criminal prosecution.
It's about 5 p.m. on a Saturday afternoon at a bustling burger joint. 19-year-old assistant manager Bianca Palomira is busy behind the counter. She has no idea that her whole life is about to change.
We start changing shifts. We weren't too short-staffed, but it was picking up. It was busy.
Outside, an SUV pulls up and 4 people get out.
I first saw them from a distance because they were in the front and I was in the back to the drive-thru area.
What Bianca doesn't know is that they are here to cause trouble.
This particular customer was allegedly bullying a special needs person inside of that establishment.
People who bully others who are perceived as being weaker tend to have a power complex, even if it means that someone else is getting hurt or ridiculed.
Out of camera view in the dining area, one of the men bullies an autistic teen. He's a friend of Bianca's, and she's furious, so she storms over to confront the man.
I just hear someone talking very loudly, very disrespectful, saying slurs to him, telling him he's gonna beat him up if he keeps looking at him. When I decided to say, you know, he's special needs.
But instead of listening to her, the man gets right in Bianca's face, yelling racial slurs. And then he hits her not once, but twice. Bianca's co-workers rush in to protect her, and numerous customers dial 911. The man's last punch hits Bianca right in the eye.
And she is viciously and very unfortunately attacked.
Her angry attacker pushes someone's order off a counter before fleeing. Bianca is rushed to a hospital where she gets sobering news.
They kept asking me if he was wearing any rings because they didn't think that a normal punch could rupture an eye.
A massive manhunt is launched to find the suspect.
The local police department in California teamed up very quickly with the United States Marshal Service, and they worked together in tandem to be able to track down leads and tips on this case.
It was definitely something that I was worried about, not only for me, but for my family. I mean, my sister was out on the news with me, so not only was I in danger, but also her.
For 3 weeks, she's on edge until he's finally arrested.
Bianca's story dominates the news and quickly goes viral.
The man got right into Palomira's face and yelled slurs at her.
The man then came after her. The second punch he threw hit her in the eye.
We're very proud of her. She did the right thing. Her heart was there when she did it.
With the help of online tipsters, the suspect, Isaac White Carter, is identified by U.S. Marshals and arrested outside his California home. But for Bianca, the arrest offers little solace.
The doctor came in to finally check on me. He opened my eye and I couldn't see anything at all. It was just black. I pretty much knew that I couldn't see.
Unfortunately, she did lose her eye in this incident.
Doctors replaced Bianca's right eye with a prosthetic.
She is in the process of healing right now.
From a psychiatrist's point of view, to lose such a vital organ can be highly traumatizing.
White Carter is charged with 2 felony counts, mayhem and assault causing great bodily injury. Bianca's community rallies to her side, raising nearly $250,000 for her medical care. And the mayor gives her a key to the city.
In my book, Bianca is a hero.
Bianca, in this case, appeared to try to protect someone who was very vulnerable. It seems like she is doing her best to heal and to move on with a bright future.
And remarkably, she doesn't regret stepping in to help.
It's kind of like, I'm not a mother, but it's kind of like protecting your child, and I was very protective over him, like I was protecting a friend.
Police chasing down a man in a stolen RV.
It looks like something out of a movie.
It's a speeding missile barreling out of control.
It's a wild, dangerous chase.
It's going down! It's going down!
This guy's swerving all over the place. Pieces of the vehicle are falling off.
How is this going to end?
He rolls up on somebody's lawn. He's zipping between houses.
They have to do something.
And later, another out-of-control driver.
We're in oncoming traffic now, oncoming traffic.
I had anxiety just watching it.
And this chase has a shocking twist nobody saw coming.
It made me shudder when I watched it.
10 a.m., Wednesday, June 2nd, 2021, Uniontown, Ohio. Pipefitter Kurt Hendershot is at work when his day turns upside down.
My wife calls me, and she's like, "What are you doing right now? What are you doing?" I'm like, "I'm at work. I'm mixing up some mortar." She goes, "Well, that's not you in the motorhome?" She was actually standing at the front door waving to what she thought was me. She goes, "Well, I'm not waving to you." I said, "No." "Well, it's backing out of the driveway."
A stranger has literally driven off in the couple's RV.
It was shock. Like somebody stole the RV? No way.
Kurt's wife immediately calls the police, but as it turns out, Summit County Sheriff's deputies are already outside.
Police respond to a report of a man trying to break into cars. But instead what they find is someone who has clearly stolen an RV and they're taking it for a joyride.
Kurt and his wife are stunned. Their parked RV wasn't in any shape to be driven anywhere.
I was getting that one ready for a retirement trip to Alaska. Little by little, I was preparing it. Monday, I had just finished the entire roof. I rubber sealed it.
The motorhome was set up for camping with the side extensions out, but the thief doesn't care.
She tells the police the slides are out, the power cord has been ripped out, and the RV's going down the road.
Within minutes, dozens of police cars join the pursuit of the runaway RV, with their dash cams rolling. Bystanders are stunned.
It's still clearly mid-morning traffic. The last thing a motorist expects is for a house on wheels to come barreling through the highway.
Whoever is behind the wheel and wherever they're headed, this is scary.
This is a danger to police and other drivers on that road.
You see the thief going through red lights.
This guy is driving in between lanes. At one point we see a blockade, but the RV driver just goes right around it.
Nothing is stopping this driver, and it seems like this chase is heading for disaster.
Just when you think it can't get worse, in comes a big white semi-truck.
There's a tense moment, the RV approaching the semi, getting ready to make a turn. It's just too wide to make that pass.
Oh my God, is he just gonna crash and then keep going?
It just barely misses the semi.
Car dealer Justin Pulowski is at his auto shop in Akron when he sees the wild chase.
Oh! He's got no tire! He was on steel wheels when he passed me. They blew out the tires on the entrance ramp. He was going already a good 3 miles on steel wheels. I don't know how he was still moving.
Justin and his co-workers videotaped the unfolding reality show.
He's going down! He's going down!
Officers chase the battered RV onto another highway ramp, narrowly dodging debris.
This guy is swerving all over the place. Pieces of the vehicle are falling off. The officers, they might run over something and spin out of control.
They have to do something. This pursuit has got to come to an end before someone is killed.
Even spike strips,
Go, pull him,
which police sometimes place on the road to try and bring a runaway car to a halt, prove useless.
Spikes were not successful.
The mere size alone gives it enough momentum that even if the tires are flat, it's still going to keep moving at a high rate of speed.
Still, the spike strips do cause some damage.
completely on rims, starting to slow down here a little bit.
Police want to know how long this RV can keep going.
My wife calls me again and she goes, hey, the deputy wanted to know how much gas you had in the motorhome. I said, well, I always park it on full.
Just take a look, hit eastbound.
Nearly 30 minutes into the chase, the RV thief heads into a neighborhood area, sending everyone into a panic.
Next, he rolls up on somebody's lawn. He's zipping between houses, passing sheds.
What if somebody was out there cutting grass or working on their lawn, or kids were out there playing?
But he leaves just as fast as he entered.
He cuts through a backyard to another roadway.
The police are right on his tail.
Now, things are really getting dicey.
We need to bring this to an end. You're into board. You hit him. Right, I'm coming around now. I'm going to hit him right here.
A pit maneuver is a pursuit tactic used by police to force a car to turn sideways abruptly and lose control. And as the driver takes a tight turn, with the back of the RV now falling off, he does almost tip over.
You're wondering, is this thing gonna crash?
Then he again tries to find an escape route through a residential area.
He rolls up on another lawn, trying to find a way out.
Be ready. He's not going to go anywhere.
The tree is what stopped him finally. When he tried to come up the hill, the tree branch actually caught the part of the motorhome.
Here's the scariest moment. Is he gonna jump out with a gun? We're about to find out.
We think he's left. Get the dog ready.
Police are on edge. The chase has finally come to an end. But what will this driver do now?
He gets out of the RV and he makes a break for it.
Send that dog. Send that dog.
But he can't outrun the canine officer.
K9 tackled him. I would have liked to have seen that part.
Get your hands back now. Put your hands down your back.
The suspect, 24-year-old Randy Schiffbauer, is immediately apprehended.
Schiffbauer was taken to jail and charged with a long list of crimes, including aggravated robbery, theft, felonious assault, and failure to comply.
One of his charges is felonious assault. And that's basically him using the RV intentionally to ram these police officers, thinking that that would end the chase.
1524 Ken, he just ran back my cruiser.
As the story of the wild chase makes news, it instantly goes viral.
This is a story we first brought to you on our digital platforms, and it has now been shared thousands of times.
And I'm like, you gotta be kidding. This thing had become famous like within 5 minutes.
Social media comments range from concerned.
A lot of people like, this is absolutely crazy. I can't believe this is happening where we live.
To comical.
Best one, I think, somebody had posted, I'll bet he's not a happy camper.
But what really shocks everyone is the revelation that this guy has done this before.
Caught on camera tonight, police chasing down a man in a stolen RV, and now police say the man arrested for that chase is actually responsible for another bizarre crime.
This is not his first rodeo.
Local TV reporter Sia Nyorker says his name is well known in her newsroom.
It was like a light bulb We were in the newsroom and we're like, could this be the same Randy Schiffbauer? No way. Yes, it's the same Randy Schiffbauer. Stolen RV, stolen bulldozer. Wow.
In another dangerous news-making chase 2 years earlier, Schiffbauer stole a bulldozer.
Man who took a bulldozer on a joyride.
The guy driving the bulldozer is wearing his tighty-whities, and he demolishes a car, and then he takes out the front porch of a home well.
I need police officers here at 729 Emmett Street. This guy's got a tractor, he's going to the house next door.
He's got the fork up real high, and as he's coming down the street, he's going back and forth with the steering wheel, left and right, left and right.
Police told us that the bulldozer was stolen from a nearby construction site. The good news, no one was hurt, but it still shook a lot of people up.
It's clear that this person has a love of oversized vehicles.
Schiffbauer was arrested and charged in the bulldozer theft. But incredibly, there was also another incident in 2018.
Caught on camera, troopers chasing an ATV on the highway.
Randy Schiffbauer was actually the passenger. This ATV chase lasted about 3 miles before it finally crashed into the back of a police cruiser. Randy actually surrendered to police.
Kurt Hendershot, the man who had his RV stolen, has had to replace it with a new one. But when he went to the junkyard to take a look at his totaled caravan, he got an earful about Schiffbauer.
One of the fellows, he goes, "Oh, that was a Randy Schiffbauer." He goes, "Yeah, we know him pretty good. Let me tell you a story about him." I can't believe it that he's already done this several times. The four-wheeler, the bulldozer.
This man is known for stealing vehicles. Everybody knew.
Schiffbauer is currently in jail, held on a $1 million bond. And even though Kurt can laugh about it now, he fears this thief will never learn his lesson.
Got a pretty bad track record. I think he'll get out and try and top this one. He'll do something stupid again. Hopefully he doesn't kill anyone along the way.
In Texas, another runaway driver also puts innocent people in grave danger. June 15th, 2018, San Antonio, Texas. A dangerous high-speed chase is underway, and it's all caught on camera by a police helicopter.
Extremely high rate of speed, I'd say at least 100 miles an hour.
It's incredible footage of a high-speed chase on Highway 90, one of San Antonio's most congested highways.
This was an extremely dangerous situation. High-speed chases, like a lot of things in real life, are not the glamorous, fun, musically scored things that they appear on TV shows as. They are deadly races.
It's a heart-pounding, stressful situation to be in. How far are they going to take this?
This chase begins when a woman is stopped by cops for a routine traffic violation and then flees.
She's number 3 lane now, number 2 lane. Still high rate of speed.
A ground chase ensues while a police helicopter directs from above.
Her arm is sticking out of the door right now, out of the window. Looks like her front left tire might be low. We're through a red ball intersection. She just blew through that.
But the real shock comes when they realize she's not alone.
An infant in that vehicle.
As a father, it made me shudder when I watched it. This woman had a baby in the back seat of her car the entire time.
It's one thing to endanger your own life, but to put the life of your child in this kind of danger is very unmaternal.
So this continues to get worse and worse as it progresses. Everybody's in danger. Police, the child, the suspect, other motorists.
Police use spike strips in a desperate attempt to slow her down.
Highway patrol just got a spike.
The spikes pop the tires on the car that's fleeing, theoretically to bring the car to a stop.
But it doesn't work.
She's now on the access across the median.
She veers onto the highway's access road, where people and cars are uncomfortably close.
Looks like they're going to crash almost. Stand by, still going.
As she barrels down the highway, police want to know, who is this woman?
Who is the baby? Is it her child? What the heck is going on here?
Why is she running?
Simply wild and unbelievable. Obviously, this lady is in a manic, frantic state of mind. I don't think she was thinking at all. To me, this just looks like pure reaction. All she wanted to do was to get away, to flee, to escape these police, and if she could do that, maybe she could make her troubles go away.
The video of the woman leading police on the chase at more than 100 miles an hour with that child in the car horrifies newscasters.
I had anxiety just watching it.
Of course. The fact that she was driving so unbelievably reckless through traffic with this young baby in the back of the car.
And the danger keeps escalating.
We're in oncoming traffic now, oncoming traffic.
Then, a few minutes into the chase,
the car is literally running on flat tires.
Things take a dramatic turn.
Hold here, 1050, 1050.
She crashes into the back of a pickup truck.
As if this couldn't get any crazier, it does.
She jumps out of the vehicle for what? More chaos?
She's in the back seat. She's got the baby and we're running. We're running southbound from the accident.
Now, the runaway driver is trying to escape the police on foot with a baby in its car seat. Adding to the shock of the whole scenario, it doesn't look like the baby was even securely buckled.
She's able to grab it so fast, it looks as if the seat was just resting in the back and she's able to reach in and grab it without hitting any kind of release on it.
She grabs them quickly, like a bag of groceries.
What's even more amazing is that this baby didn't shoot out of the front of the car when she smashed into the pickup truck.
Then to make matters worse, she grabs the baby and begins darting in and out of traffic, dragging the baby along with her.
Female with a baby is running southbound from the crash.
That's when the woman takes this to another level.
Okay, we're getting in a white Nissan Xterra, troops in front of it, hold the air.
The woman jumps into the passenger seat of another car with the baby in what appears to be a last-ditch attempt to carjack it. But armed troopers storm the car, directing the terrified driver to open the doors.
Doors are open. Troops trying to get her out now. Female driver of this white Nissan Xterra also has a child.
This is scary. Now, a second child is involved. As the driver frantically rescues her own child from the back seat, troopers tackle the woman who started the whole mess to the ground.
The baby's safe,
107 EMS has been notified.
The woman is taken into custody and everyone breathes a sigh of relief.
This did not have a terrible ending.
But questions still remain. Who is this woman? Why is she running? And is this even her child?
An infant in that vehicle. Extremely high rate of speed. They're going to crash almost. Stand by. Still going.
Once police arrest the woman, they get their answers. And it doesn't take long to figure out why she was running. She's identified as 29-year-old Caitlin Rodriguez.
And it turns out she's wanted on multiple warrants.
Her criminal record includes felony theft, forgery, and aggravated assault. The child, who turns out to be her own, is taken into protective custody.
We have to think a motive for this woman. If she got caught and arrested again, she probably would lose her baby. So the irony of this whole situation is that she's fleeing with her baby to keep them from taking her baby, but sadly, that's exactly what happened.
On social media, people react with anger and outrage.
The comments were relentless. People are ready to be the judge, jury, and executioner of this woman.
She endangered the lives of so many people. She's putting herself in harm's way. She's putting her own child in harm's way. She's putting the police in harm's way, and everyone who's on the road as she's driving maniacally through traffic.
Rodriguez is charged with evading arrest, endangering the welfare of a child, and possession of a controlled substance. She offers no explanation for her actions, but in December 2018, she's sentenced on one of the charges.
She agreed to plead guilty to the evading arrest charge, and prosecutors dismissed the endangering child charge as well as the felony drug offense. She was sentenced to 5 years in a state penitentiary.
Lessons learned here. Number one, it's always a bad idea to run from the police. It never works out in your favor. But number two, I think this is also a metaphor from running from your problems, because at the end of the day, those problems are gonna find you.
Rodriguez is serving her time at the Hilltop Unit in Gatesville, Texas, a prison for women. Her attorney says her child is in good care and is doing just fine. More than 3 years later, the video is still haunting.
It's a really frightening thing that there are people around us who are essentially powder kegs, and all it takes is one moment, one trigger to push them over the edge and endanger the lives of us all.
It doesn't get any easier to watch. One of the most incredible pieces of footage that I've ever seen.
There are some disappearances that become criminal investigations. There are others that become national obsessions. And then there are the rare cases that evolve into something even larger, mysteries that refuse to fade. Mysteries that seem to grow more complex with every passing year, absorbing new theories, new suspicions, and new questions while offering almost no answers in return. The disappearance of Emanuela Orlandi belongs to that final category. More than 4 decades have passed since a 15-year-old girl walked through Rome on what should have been an ordinary summer day. She left for a music lesson, spoke with her family, discussed a seemingly harmless job opportunity, and then vanished. No confirmed trace of her has ever been found. No definitive explanation has ever emerged. Despite countless investigations, media reports, witness statements, anonymous tips, and renewed inquiries, the most important question remains exactly where it was on the evening of June 22nd, 1983. What happened to Emanuela Orlandi? It is a question that has haunted not only her family, but also Italy, the Vatican, journalists, investigators, and millions of people who have followed the case over the years. It is a question that has survived changes in governments, changes in popes, and changes in generations. Children who were not yet born when Emanuela disappeared have grown into adults while the mystery surrounding her fate remains unresolved. At first glance, the case appears deceptively simple. A teenager goes missing. Such tragedies occur all over the world. Every year, countless families experience the terror of a loved one failing to return home. Most cases are eventually resolved. The missing person is found alive, or evidence emerges explaining what happened. Even when the outcome is tragic, there is often some form of conclusion. Facts are established. Responsibility is determined. Families receive answers. But Emanuela Orlandi's story followed a very different path. The deeper investigators looked, the stranger the case became. Instead of leading toward a clear suspect, the investigation seemed to branch outward in every direction. Anonymous callers emerged. Demands were made. International political implications suddenly entered the story. Organized crime was mentioned. Questions arose about powerful institutions. Decades later, even excavations and renewed investigations would fail to provide certainty. The result is a case that exists somewhere between criminal investigation and historical mystery. To understand why, it is important to appreciate the unusual circumstances surrounding the girl at the center of the story. Emanuela Orlandi was not merely a teenager living in Rome. She was a citizen of Vatican City. That single fact transformed what might otherwise have been a local missing person investigation into something far more significant. Vatican City is the smallest sovereign state in the world. It occupies a unique position not only geographically, but symbolically. It is the center of the Roman Catholic Church and home to some of the most influential religious institutions on earth. Although physically surrounded by Rome, it exists as its own independent entity. For many people around the world, the Vatican is a place associated with ceremony, tradition, faith, and authority. Few imagine it as the setting for one of the most enduring missing person mysteries in modern history. Yet that is exactly what happened. When Emanuela disappeared, concern spread quickly beyond her immediate family. The case attracted attention not simply because a young girl was missing, but because of who she was and where she came from. Her connection to the Vatican immediately raised the profile of the investigation. Journalists became interested. Authorities faced growing pressure. Public curiosity intensified. And then came the phone calls. The calls would become one of the most unsettling aspects of the entire case. In the days following Emanuela's disappearance, anonymous individuals began contacting her family. Some claimed to have seen a girl resembling her. Others offered information that seemed impossible to verify. Hope and uncertainty mixed together in equal measure. Then a mysterious figure emerged. The media would eventually refer to him as the American. Nobody knew his identity. Nobody could confirm his role. Yet his voice would become one of the defining features of the case. Speaking Italian with a foreign accent, the caller made a startling claim. He said that Emanuela was being held captive. For a family desperately searching for answers, such statements created an agonizing dilemma. Were these calls genuine? Were they cruel pranks? Were they attempts to manipulate investigators? Or were they evidence that Emanuela was still alive somewhere? The mystery deepened further when a demand was attached to the alleged kidnapping. The caller spoke about Mehmet Ali Agca. At the time, this was a name known throughout the world. Agca was the man responsible for the attempted assassination of Pope John Paul II in 1981. 2 years after that attack, anonymous callers appeared to suggest a connection between him and the disappearance of a Vatican teenager. The proposed exchange was extraordinary. Release Agca, and Emanuela would be freed. It sounded like the plot of an international political thriller. The possibility captured public attention immediately. Newspapers reported on it. Observers speculated about terrorist organizations, geopolitical motives, and hidden agendas. Suddenly, what had begun as the disappearance of a 15-year-old girl seemed linked to events reaching far beyond the streets of Rome. Yet as investigators examined the claims, problems quickly emerged. Evidence was scarce. Connections were unclear. Proof remained elusive. Over time, many investigators would question whether the alleged kidnapping for exchange theory had any basis in reality at all. Some came to suspect that the calls may have distracted attention rather than illuminated the truth. But even as one theory weakened, another would emerge. That pattern would repeat itself for decades. Again and again, the case appeared to move toward resolution before slipping back into uncertainty. A witness would come forward. A new allegation would surface. A document would attract attention. Human remains would be examined. Investigators would reopen old files. And each time, hopes would rise that the mystery was finally about to be solved. Each time, certainty remained out of reach. This cycle has become one of the defining characteristics of the Orlandi case. For many families dealing with loss, grief follows a painful but recognizable path. There is shock, sorrow, and eventually some form of acceptance. But unresolved disappearances create a different kind of suffering. They leave families suspended between hope and despair. Every new lead carries the possibility of an answer. Every failed lead creates another disappointment. The Orlandi family has lived within that uncertainty for decades. The disappearance of Emanuela did not end on June 22, 1983. In many ways, it began there. What followed was a story that stretched across generations. A story involving investigators, prosecutors, journalists, anonymous sources, and public inquiries. A story in which speculation often traveled faster than evidence. A story where rumors sometimes seemed more plentiful than facts. And yet beneath all the theories, all the headlines, and all the controversy lies a simple reality that can sometimes be overlooked. At the center of this mystery was a 15-year-old girl. Before she became a symbol, before she became the subject of documentaries, investigations, and endless debate, before politicians discussed her case and journalists examined every available clue, she was simply Emanuela Orlandi, a daughter, a student, a teenager attending music lessons, someone with a future that had not yet been written. On a summer day in 1983, that future abruptly disappeared from view. The years that followed would generate countless questions. Was she abducted? Were the anonymous callers telling the truth? Did organized crime play a role? Did someone know more than they admitted? Could the answer have been hidden for decades? Or is the truth buried beneath layers of rumor, misinformation, and lost opportunities from the earliest days of the investigation? More than 40 years later, no one can answer those questions with certainty. What remains is a mystery that continues to challenge investigators and captivate the public. Imagination. A mystery that begins not with a dramatic crime scene or a shocking discovery, but with something far more ordinary. A young girl leaving for a music lesson. A phone call home. A routine journey through Rome. And then silence. The silence lasted through that evening. It lasted through the following days. It lasted through years of investigations and decades of speculation. And today, it remains one of the most enduring, unanswered questions in modern Italian history. To understand how such a mystery could emerge, we must go back to the beginning, not to the theories, the anonymous callers, or the political intrigue, but to the life of the girl whose disappearance started it all. Who was Emanuela Orlandi? And what was her world like before June 22nd, 1983 changed everything? Before a person becomes the subject of headlines. Before investigators assemble files filled with witness statements and unanswered questions. There is usually an ordinary life. A routine, a family, dreams that have not yet had the chance to unfold. One of the most important principles in any true crime story is remembering that the mystery did not begin with the crime itself. It began with a human being. In the case of Emanuela Orlandi, that truth is especially important. Over the decades, her name has become associated with theories involving politics, organized crime, anonymous callers, and institutional controversy. Yet long before any of those narratives emerged, Emanuela was simply a 15-year-old girl living a life that, despite its unusual setting, contained many of the same hopes and routines shared by teenagers everywhere. Emanuela Orlandi was born on January 14, 1968. She was the daughter of Ercole Orlandi, a lay employee of the Vatican. Through her father's work, the family lived within Vatican City itself. This detail would later become one of the defining features of the case. But in the years before her disappearance, it was simply the environment she called home. To many people around the world, Vatican City exists more as a symbol than as a place. Images of St. Peter's Basilica, religious ceremonies, and historic traditions often come to mind. It is the smallest sovereign state in the world, yet it possesses enormous global influence. Millions view it as the spiritual center of the Catholic faith. Political leaders visit it. Pilgrims travel across continents to see it. News from the Vatican can reach every corner of the globe within hours. For the people who actually live there, however, it is also a community. Families wake up in the morning. Parents go to work. Children attend school. Daily life continues beneath the shadow of history and tradition. The walls that separate Vatican City from Rome may symbolize sovereignty and independence. but they do not prevent ordinary human experiences from taking place. Families still share meals. Teenagers still worry about school, friendships, and the future. Emanuela grew up in that unique environment. Although the Vatican occupied only a small area geographically, it represented an extraordinary setting in which to spend one's childhood. Unlike most teenagers, Emanuela lived within a place recognized throughout the world. Yet there is no indication in the available information that she lived an extraordinary personal life. In many respects, she appears to have been a normal adolescent navigating the familiar transition between childhood and adulthood. By 1983, Emanuela was 15 years old. She was attending secondary school and pursuing an interest in music. Specifically, she studied the flute at a music school in Rome. Music was an important part of her routine. It required commitment, discipline, and regular travel between Vatican City and the Italian capital surrounding it. This detail is significant because it reveals something about the rhythm of her daily life. Unlike a child who spent all of her time close to home, Emanuela regularly moved between different environments. She lived within Vatican City, but attended music lessons in Rome. Such journeys would have become familiar. The routes, schedules, and locations were part of her normal routine. They represented the predictable structure of everyday life. Looking back from the perspective of the present, there is a temptation to search every aspect of that routine for hidden meaning. People naturally wonder whether a particular habit, encounter, or decision contributed to what eventually happened. Yet before June 22, 1983, there was no reason to view these ordinary activities as unusual or dangerous. For Emanuela and her family, attending music lessons was simply part of life. Perhaps this is one of the most tragic aspects of many disappearance cases. The final day often begins without any indication that it will become significant. There is no warning sign visible to those involved. No announcement that a routine moment will later be analyzed by investigators, journalists, and historians. The available information does not portray Emanuela as someone living in crisis. There is no indication in the source material of major conflict, dramatic life changes, or unusual circumstances surrounding her daily existence. Instead, what emerges is the image of a teenager with responsibilities, interests, and a future ahead of her. That future is an important thing to consider. At 15 years old, most people are still discovering who they are. The decisions that will shape adulthood often remain years away. Interests evolve, ambitions change, friendships deepen, new opportunities emerge. The future feels open and expansive. For Emanuela, music appears to have occupied at least part of that future. Studying the flute requires dedication. It is not an activity sustained through casual interest alone. Lessons demand practice, concentration, and persistence. Whether she intended to pursue music professionally or simply enjoyed it as an important part of her life, it clearly played a meaningful role in her routine. There is something deeply poignant about that fact. The last confirmed day of Emanuela's life as a free and visible member of her community was not marked by extraordinary circumstances. It revolved around something constructive and creative, education and music. The very activity that reflected her interests and aspirations became intertwined with the final known movements investigators would later attempt to reconstruct. The world surrounding Emanuela in 1983 was also very different from the one we know today. Modern technology had not yet transformed communication and surveillance. There were no smartphones tracking locations, no social media posts documenting movements, no digital records automatically preserving every interaction. Investigators working missing person cases in that era often relied heavily on witness accounts, physical evidence, and traditional police work. When a person disappeared, the available information could be remarkably limited. This reality would become critically important after Emanuela vanished. But before that happened, June 22nd began like any other day. No one in her family could have known that the date would become permanently associated with one of the most famous unsolved mysteries in Italian history. No one could have anticipated that decades later, journalists and investigators would still be discussing events that unfolded over the course of a single summer afternoon and evening. If we pause and imagine the perspective of her family at that time, the contrast becomes striking. They did not see themselves standing at the edge of a historic mystery. They saw a daughter, a student, a teenager following her routine. The significance would come later. Much later. The years following Emanuela's disappearance would transform her into a symbol. Her photograph would become familiar to people who had never met her. Her name would be repeated in newspapers, documentaries, television programs, parliamentary discussions, and investigative reports. Entire generations would grow up recognizing her as one of Italy's most famous missing persons. Yet symbols can sometimes obscure the individuals they represent. Behind every headline stood a real young woman whose life was interrupted before she had the opportunity to define her own future. The mystery would eventually become global, but its origins remained profoundly personal. A family expected their daughter to come home. That expectation was entirely reasonable. Nothing in the known facts suggested that June 22nd should have been different from countless other days. Emanuela left for her music-related activities just as she had before. She moved through familiar environments. She followed routines that had become normal parts of her life. The world around her appeared stable and predictable. In hindsight, we know that this sense of normalcy was about to disappear. But at this point in the story, neither Emanuela nor her family could have imagined the scale of what would follow. They could not have foreseen decades of investigations. They could not have anticipated anonymous phone calls, international theories, allegations involving organized crime, or renewed inquiries conducted more than 40 years later. All of that still lay in the future. For now, there was only a 15-year-old girl living within one of the world's most unusual communities, pursuing her education and music studies while moving between Vatican City and Rome. The details seem simple. Perhaps that simplicity is precisely what makes the story so haunting. The beginning contains nothing extraordinary. No dramatic warning. No obvious danger. No event that clearly signals catastrophe. Instead, there is only ordinary life. And then comes June 22nd, 1983. A summer day that begins with routine plans and familiar destinations. A day during which Emanuela would make an unusual phone call home. A day that would end with a final confirmed sighting near a bus stop in central Rome. A day that would leave behind questions that remain unanswered more than 4 decades later. To understand how one ordinary day became one of Europe's most enduring mysteries, we must now follow the events of June 22nd itself, hour by hour, step by step, until the moment when the known facts end and the mystery begins. June 22nd, 1983 began as an ordinary summer day. There were no signs that it would become one of the most scrutinized dates in modern Italian criminal history. No alarms had been raised. No investigators were watching. No journalists were preparing headlines. For the Orlandi family, it was simply another day in the life of a 15-year-old girl balancing school, family, and her musical studies. Yet by the end of that evening, Emanuela Orlandi would disappear without a trace, leaving behind a mystery that would endure for decades. One of the most unsettling aspects of this case is how ordinary its beginning appears when viewed through the lens of the available facts. There is no dramatic confrontation, no confirmed threat, no known act of violence. Instead, the timeline starts with routine movements and familiar destinations. Emanuela left Vatican City to attend activities connected to her music studies in Rome, something that had become a normal part of her life. She was not entering an unfamiliar world. She was following a path she had traveled before. At 15 years old, Emanuela occupied a stage of life marked by increasing independence. Like many teenagers, she moved through public spaces without constant supervision. She attended classes, interacted with other people, and managed portions of her daily routine on her own. Nothing about that fact would have appeared unusual to her family. It reflected trust, maturity, and the ordinary process of growing up. As the day progressed, however, one detail emerged that would later attract enormous attention from investigators. At some point during June 22nd, Emanuela contacted her family. The call itself was not alarming. In fact, it initially appeared to concern something relatively mundane. She told her family about an encounter she had experienced. According to the information she provided, a man had approached her with an offer of paid work. The proposed job involved distributing promotional flyers for a cosmetics company during a fashion event. For a teenager, such an offer might have sounded attractive. It promised an opportunity to earn money through what appeared to be simple promotional work. Viewed in isolation, the conversation did not necessarily suggest danger. Temporary promotional jobs were not unheard of. The proposal, at least on the surface, did not contain obvious signs of criminal intent. Yet, because of what happened later that day, investigators and observers would return to this phone call repeatedly, examining every available detail and wondering whether it represented a crucial clue. Who was the man? Was the offer genuine? Did the encounter have any connection to Emanuela's disappearance? Or was it merely a coincidence that happened to occur on the same day she vanished? The tragedy of the case is that no definitive answers ever emerged. What remains is the knowledge that Emanuela considered the encounter significant enough to mention to her family. That fact alone ensured the conversation would become part of the permanent record surrounding her. Final known day. After the phone call, the day continued. The known facts become increasingly limited as the hours pass. This is often the case in long unsolved disappearances. Investigators attempt to reconstruct movements, conversations, and decisions, but gaps remain. Those gaps become fertile ground for speculation, yet speculation is not evidence. The reality is that many aspects of Emanuela's final hours remain uncertain. What can be established from the available information is that the evening approached and Emanuela was still moving through central Rome. Then came the final confirmed sighting. At approximately 7:30 p.m., Emanuela was reportedly seen near a bus stop in central Rome. This moment carries extraordinary significance because it represents the last verified point at which she was known to be present. Every missing person investigation eventually arrives at a similar boundary. There's a point where the facts end. Everything before that point can be described with relative confidence. Everything after it becomes uncertain. For Emanuela Orlandi, the bus stop in central Rome marks that boundary. Investigators know she was there. What happened next remains unknown. Did she leave willingly with someone? Was she persuaded to accompany another person? Did she encounter an individual she knew? Did she become the victim of a crime? The available evidence does not provide definitive answers. What is known is that after that sighting, Emanuela disappeared completely. She did not return home. She did not re-establish contact with her family. No confirmed public appearance followed. No verifiable explanation emerged. For the Orlandi family, the transition from normal concern to genuine fear likely unfolded gradually at first. When a teenager is late, there are often innocent explanations. Transportation delays, changes in plans, miscommunication, everyday inconveniences. Families typically consider these possibilities before imagining something far more serious. But as time passed and Emanuela failed to return, concern inevitably intensified. The hours moved forward. The expected arrival never came. Attempts to locate her produced no immediate success. As evening became night, uncertainty transformed into alarm. Some of the most painful moments in any disappearance occur during these early hours. Family members face a rapidly changing emotional landscape. At first, there is confusion, then concern, then fear. Each passing minute increases the realization that something may be seriously wrong. The available information indicates that Emanuela's family searched for her throughout the night. Their efforts reflected the growing recognition that this was not a routine delay. Something had happened. The problem was that nobody knew what. One can easily imagine the questions repeating themselves endlessly. Where was she? Who had seen her? Had she changed her plans? Could she be stranded somewhere? Would she walk through the door at any moment and explain everything? Such hopes are common in the earliest stages of disappearances. Families cling to ordinary explanations because the alternatives are too frightening to contemplate. Yet as the search continued, no reassuring answer appeared. Eventually, authorities became involved. This should have marked the beginning of an urgent effort to locate a vulnerable missing teenager. Instead, one of the most controversial aspects of the early investigation emerged. According to later accounts, police initially considered the possibility that Emanuela had left voluntarily. Such assumptions were not uncommon during that era, particularly when dealing with teenagers. Investigators sometimes viewed disappearances through the lens of youthful rebellion, temporary absences, or personal choice. In many cases, missing adolescents returned home within a short period. The problem, critics would later argue, is that those assumptions can consume valuable time. When investigators believe a missing person may have left voluntarily, the urgency of the response can be reduced. Resources may not be deployed immediately. Potential evidence can disappear. Witness memories can fade. Whether different actions during those earliest hours would have altered the outcome is impossible to know. What is clear is that the initial phase of the investigation remains a subject of discussion decades later. The reason is simple. The first hours after a disappearance are often the most important. Witnesses are easier to identify. Memories are fresher. Physical traces are more likely to remain. Potential suspects have had less time to distance themselves from events. Once those hours pass, opportunities can be lost forever. In Emanuela's case, the passage of time only increased uncertainty. As the night continued, no definitive lead emerged. No reliable explanation appeared. The girl who had attended music-related activities, spoken with her family, and discussed a possible job opportunity seemed to have vanished from the world. The mystery had begun. Yet what makes this disappearance particularly unusual is what happened next. Many missing person cases fade temporarily from public view during the earliest stages of investigation. Authorities gather information, interview witnesses, and search for evidence. Public attention develops gradually. That is not what happened here. Within days, events would take an unexpected and deeply unsettling turn. The telephone would begin ringing. Anonymous callers would enter the story. Individuals claiming knowledge of Emanuela's whereabouts would emerge. A mysterious figure later known as the American would make extraordinary statements. In a case that began with the disappearance of a 15-year-old music student would suddenly become connected, at least in the public imagination, to international politics and one of the most famous crimes involving the Vatican. But before those theories, before the media frenzy, before decades of speculation transformed the case into a global mystery, there is only one undeniable fact. On June 22, 1983, Emanuela Orlandi left for her normal activities and never returned home. Everything that followed would be an attempt to answer the question created by that single. A family expected their daughter to come back. She didn't. A teenager was seen near a bus stop in central Rome. Then she vanished. The known facts end there. The mystery begins there. And for more than 40 years, no one has been able to bridge the distance between those 2 points. When a person disappears without a trace, investigators are forced to build a case from fragments. A witness remembers a face. A family member recalls a conversation. A stranger reports an encounter. Each piece is examined, compared, and tested against the others in the hope that a coherent picture will eventually emerge. In the case of Emanuela Orlandi, however, the investigation would become something far more complicated. Instead of moving steadily toward a single explanation, it expanded outward into a labyrinth of competing theories, anonymous claims, and unanswered questions. Every promising lead seemed to create new uncertainties. Every apparent breakthrough eventually encountered obstacles. As the years passed, the search for Emanuela became not only an investigation into a disappearance, but also an effort to distinguish fact from speculation, evidence from rumor, and possibility from proof. The earliest stage of the investigation began with the most basic objective: finding a missing 15-year-old girl. Emanuela had last been seen on June 22, 1983, near a bus stop in central Rome. She had failed to return home. Her family had searched throughout the night. Authorities had been notified. At this point, investigators were attempting to answer the fundamental questions that accompany every disappearance. Where had she gone? Who had seen her? Had she left voluntarily? Had she become a victim of crime? Was she still alive? Those questions were difficult enough on their own. Then the telephone calls began. In many criminal investigations, anonymous calls are viewed with caution. Some contain useful information. Others are deliberate attempts to mislead investigators. Still others are the work of attention seekers, opportunists, or individuals exploiting a family's suffering. Determining which category a call belongs to can be extraordinarily difficult, especially in a high-profile case. Following Emanuela's disappearance, her family began receiving calls from people claiming to possess information about her whereabouts. Some callers reported seeing a girl who resembled Emanuela. Such tips are common in missing person investigations. When a case receives public attention, witnesses often come forward believing they have seen the missing individual. Some reports are sincere mistakes. Others result from incomplete memories. A few occasionally prove valuable. At the time, each reported sighting represented a potential lead. For the Orlandi family, every call carried emotional weight. Hope could emerge from a single statement. If someone claimed to have seen Emanuela, perhaps she was still alive. Perhaps she could be found. Perhaps the nightmare was nearing its end. But as investigators examined these reports, certainty remained elusive. Then the case took a dramatic turn. Among the anonymous callers was an individual who would become one of the most mysterious figures, associated with the entire investigation. The media eventually referred to him as the American. His true identity was never established publicly. His motives remained unclear. Yet his calls would have a profound impact on both public perception and the direction of the investigation. The caller reportedly spoke Italian with a foreign accent. That characteristic alone helped distinguish him from other anonymous sources. More importantly, he made extraordinary claims. According to the caller, Emanuela was alive. According to the caller, she was being held captive. Such statements immediately changed the nature of the case. Until that point, investigators were dealing with a missing person investigation characterized by uncertainty. Now, there appeared to be someone claiming direct knowledge of the girl's fate. Naturally, authorities had to take such assertions seriously. The possibility that Emanuela had been abducted could not be ignored. Yet the mystery deepened even further when the caller introduced a specific demand. To understand the significance of that demand, it is necessary to consider events that had occurred 2 years earlier. In 1981, Pope John Paul II survived an assassination attempt carried out by Mehmet Ali Agca. The attack shocked the world because of the Pope's international prominence. The incident attracted enormous media attention and generated widespread political speculation. Now, in the aftermath of Emanuela's disappearance, anonymous callers appeared to connect these two seemingly unrelated events. The demand was startling. Release Mehmet Ali Agca. In exchange, Emanuela would be freed. The implications were enormous. If true, the disappearance was no longer merely a criminal matter involving a missing teenager. It potentially involved political motives, international actors, and pressure directed at one of the world's most influential religious institutions. Public attention intensified almost immediately. Observers began asking whether Emanuela had been abducted as part of a political operation. The timing and nature of the demand seemed to suggest a connection. Media coverage expanded. Speculation flourished. The theory captured imaginations because it appeared to offer a coherent explanation for an otherwise baffling event. Yet investigations are not built on dramatic narratives. They are built on evidence. And evidence proved difficult to find. Authorities examined the possibility that Emanuela had been kidnapped to secure Agca's release. The theory received serious consideration because of its apparent significance. However, as investigators worked through available information, major problems emerged. No reliable evidence established that Emanuela was actually being held for such a purpose. No clear connection was found linking the callers to a terrorist organization. No definitive proof supported the claim that the disappearance had been orchestrated as part of an international political operation. As time passed, many investigators became increasingly skeptical. Some concluded that the calls may have functioned primarily as a distraction. Rather than revealing the truth, they may have obscured it. But even as confidence in one theory weakened, another began to gain attention. This new line of speculation pointed toward organized crime. Specifically, it focused on Banda della Magliana, one of Rome's most notorious criminal organizations. The emergence of this theory reflected a broader pattern that would define the Orlandi investigation. For decades, whenever one explanation appeared insufficient, another would emerge to take its place. According to this theory, Emanuela's disappearance might have been connected to efforts to exert pressure on Vatican interests. Discussions of financial scandals and alleged relationships between organized crime and powerful institutions became part of the public conversation. Among the names repeatedly mentioned was Enrico De Pietris, a figure associated with Banda della Magliana. The theory attracted significant attention for several reasons. First, it offered a potential motive. Second, it connected the disappearance to existing concerns about criminal influence and financial misconduct. Third, it appeared capable of explaining why a Vatican citizen might become the target of an abduction. Yet once again, attention did not automatically translate into proof. Investigators faced the same challenge that had complicated earlier theories. Evidence remained limited. Assertions were plentiful. Verification was difficult. The situation became even more complex in 2008 when a woman named Sabrina Minardi came forward with dramatic claims. According to her account, Emanuela had been held captive and later handed over to a man dressed as a priest. The allegations generated enormous media interest. For observers following the case, it appeared possible that a major breakthrough had finally occurred. After all, The public had waited more than 2 decades for significant new information. Any witness claiming direct knowledge of events naturally attracted attention. But criminal investigations require more than compelling stories. Witness credibility must be evaluated carefully. Statements must be tested against known facts. Consistency matters, and this is where problems emerged. Investigators identified contradictions within Minardi's account. Questions arose regarding the reliability of her statements. The more authorities examined the claims, the more difficult it became to determine which elements, if any, could be confirmed. Ultimately, her testimony failed to provide the definitive answers many had hoped for. The case remained unresolved. At this point, the investigation had already traveled through multiple dramatically different explanations. Political kidnapping, international pressure, organized crime. Each theory appeared capable of explaining certain aspects of the mystery. Each theory also suffered from significant evidentiary weaknesses. Yet perhaps the most controversial theory was still to come. Over the years, some members of the Orlandi family and various investigative journalists raised the possibility that Emanuela's disappearance might be connected to an internal Vatican scandal. This theory generated intense debate. At its core was the suggestion that important information may not have been disclosed publicly. Some proponents speculated about the possibility of abuse or misconduct involving individuals connected to powerful institutions. Others argued that secrecy surrounding aspects of the case fueled suspicion. It is important to emphasize a critical distinction. These claims remained theories. Despite years of discussion and investigation, no evidence strong enough to establish such allegations as fact emerged from the available information. Nevertheless, the theory persisted. Why? Part of the answer lies in the nature of unresolved mysteries. When a case remains unsolved for decades, public confidence can erode. People begin searching for explanations capable of accounting for the absence of answers. Secrecy, institutional complexity, and incomplete information often create fertile ground for speculation. The Orlandi case became a textbook example of this phenomenon. The longer uncertainty endured, the more theories accumulated. Another persistent line of speculation involved the possibility that Emanuela survived and was taken abroad. Over the years, rumors emerged suggesting she had been transported to another country, including reports referencing London. Certain documents reportedly mentioned the city, fueling hopes that she might still be alive somewhere beyond Italy. For families of missing persons, such possibilities can be emotionally devastating. Hope becomes difficult to abandon. As long as uncertainty exists, so does the possibility, however remote, that the missing person survived. Yet once again, investigators encountered a familiar problem. No verified evidence confirmed these reports. No conclusive proof demonstrated that Emanuela had ever appeared abroad. The theory remained another unresolved possibility within an already crowded landscape of competing explanations. Decades passed. The investigation continued. Then, in 2018 and 2019, the case experienced another moment of intense public attention. Human remains were discovered at locations connected to Vatican investigations. For the Orlandi family, the developments represented another potential opportunity for answers. Perhaps, after all these years, science would finally provide certainty. Authorities authorized examinations of tombs within the Teutonic Cemetery. Forensic experts became involved. Investigative resources were devoted to determining whether the remains might be connected to Emanuela's disappearance. The public followed the developments closely. Expectations rose. After so many years, perhaps this was the breakthrough everyone had been waiting for. The results were deeply disappointing. Forensic analysis established no connection between the discovered remains and Emanuela Orlandi. In fact, some remains were determined to be centuries older than her disappearance. Another lead had ended. Another possibility had collapsed. Another chapter in the investigation closed without resolution. Yet the story was not over. In 2023, Vatican authorities formally reopened the investigation under the direction of Pope Francis. Historical files were reviewed. Witnesses were interviewed again. Materials were shared with prosecutors in Rome for further examination. Meanwhile, the Italian Parliament established a special commission to examine the disappearance of both Emanuela Orlandi and another missing girl, Mirella Gregori. The decision reflected an enduring reality. Despite decades of inquiry, the case had never truly ended. Too many questions remained unanswered. Too many uncertainties persisted. Even in 2025 and 2026, investigators continued gathering testimony. One former friend of Emanuela, believed to be among the last people who saw her, came under scrutiny regarding possible false statements. Yet once again, the renewed activity failed to produce a definitive breakthrough. And so the investigation remains suspended between knowledge and mystery. Authorities know that Emanuela Orlandi disappeared. They know when she vanished. They know where she was last seen. They know that anonymous callers inserted themselves into the case. They know that numerous theories emerged over the decades. What they do not know is the answer to the central question. What happened after 7:30 p.m. on June 22, 1983? More than 40 years of investigation have failed to establish that fact. The maze of leads continues. The theories remain. The mystery endures. And the search for truth moves forward without a conclusion. In most true crime stories, there comes a moment when uncertainty begins to narrow. Investigators identify a suspect. Prosecutors assemble evidence. A courtroom becomes the place where competing versions of events are tested against one another. Witnesses testify. Facts are challenged. Jurors deliberate. Eventually, a verdict is reached. Even when questions remain, the legal system typically produces a formal conclusion. Someone is found guilty, found not guilty, or officially linked to the crime. The case acquires a legal ending, even if the emotional consequences continue for years. The disappearance of Emanuela Orlandi followed a very different path. More than 4 decades after she vanished, there has been no murder trial establishing responsibility for her disappearance. No individual has been conclusively identified as the perpetrator. No courtroom proceeding has reconstructed her final hours with sufficient certainty to produce a definitive legal judgment. Despite countless investigations, extensive media coverage, parliamentary interest, and renewed inquiries by Vatican authorities, the central mystery remains unresolved. This absence of resolution is one of the defining characteristics of the Orlandi case. Unlike many famous criminal investigations, the challenge here has never been determining the appropriate punishment for a known offender. Instead, the challenge has been identifying what actually happened in the first place. The distinction is crucial. Criminal prosecutions depend on evidence. Prosecutors must present facts capable of surviving scrutiny in court. Allegations, rumors, suspicions, and theories may influence public opinion, but they are not enough to sustain legal proceedings. Courts require evidence that can be examined, challenged, and verified. Throughout the decades-long investigation into Emanuela's disappearance, authorities encountered a recurring problem. There were many theories, but very few certainties. The anonymous phone calls generated enormous attention. The claims involving Mehmet Ali Agca attracted international interest. The theories connecting the case to Banda della Magliana and Enrico De Pitas produced years of discussion. The allegations concerning possible Vatican-related scandals sparked controversy. Reports suggesting Emanuela might have been taken abroad inspired hope and speculation. Yet none of these theories ultimately produced the level of evidence required to establish criminal responsibility beyond doubt. As a result, the legal process never advanced toward the type of prosecution that many observers expected or hoped to see. This reality created a unique situation. The case remained active in public consciousness while simultaneously lacking the legal milestones that typically define major criminal investigations. There was no dramatic arrest that brought clarity, no confession that answered lingering questions, no trial in which prosecutors laid out a complete reconstruction of events. Instead, the story became a succession of investigations, reviews, inquiries, and re-examinations. Each effort sought to move the case closer to resolution. Each effort encountered the same fundamental obstacle. The truth remained elusive. One reason for this difficulty lies in the nature of missing person cases themselves. When investigators cannot establish whether a victim is alive or deceased, every subsequent stage of the legal process becomes more complicated. Physical evidence may be limited or entirely absent. Witness memories can deteriorate over time. Potential suspects become harder to identify. Opportunities that existed during the first days of an investigation may disappear forever. In Emanuela's case, the passage of time magnified every challenge. Years became decades. Witnesses aged. Memories faded. Some individuals connected to various theories died before definitive answers could be obtained. The investigation increasingly became a struggle against time itself. Yet despite these obstacles, authorities never completely abandoned the search for answers. Various institutions continued examining the case. Italian investigators reviewed evidence. Prosecutors pursued new leads. Journalists conducted independent inquiries. Family members continued advocating for further investigation. And eventually, Vatican authorities themselves reopened the matter. The reopening of the investigation in 2023 represented one of the most significant developments in recent years. By authorizing a renewed inquiry, Vatican officials acknowledged that important questions remained unanswered. Historical records were reviewed. Witnesses were re-examined. Information was shared with prosecutors in Rome. The decision carried symbolic as well as practical significance. For decades, critics had argued that aspects of the case required closer scrutiny. The renewed investigation signaled a willingness to revisit old assumptions and reconsider evidence that may have been overlooked. At roughly the same time, the Italian Parliament established a special commission to examine the disappearance of Emanuela Orlandi alongside that of Mirella Gregori. Parliamentary inquiries differ from criminal prosecutions. Their purpose is not necessarily to secure convictions. Instead, they often seek to clarify historical events, identify institutional failures, and determine whether previous investigations missed important opportunities. The creation of such a commission reflected the extraordinary status of the Orlandi case within Italian public life. Very few missing person investigations remain prominent enough after 4 decades to attract parliamentary attention. Yet Emanuela's disappearance had become something more than a criminal mystery. It had become a national question. A question about truth. A question about accountability. A question about whether all available information had ever been fully examined. Even so, the establishment of new inquiries did not produce immediate answers. As investigators revisited old evidence and collected additional testimony, the familiar pattern continued. Potential leads emerged. Questions were raised. Public interest increased. Definitive conclusions remained out of reach. By 2025 and 2026, authorities were still gathering information. One former friend of Emanuela, believed to have been among the last people to see her, came under investigation regarding possible false statements. Such developments demonstrated that investigators had not stopped searching for inconsistencies or overlooked facts, yet the broader picture remained unchanged. No breakthrough established Emanuela's fate. No conclusive evidence identified a perpetrator. No prosecution resolved the case. For legal scholars and investigators, the Orlandi disappearance illustrates one of the most frustrating realities in criminal justice. Not every mystery reaches a courtroom. Popular culture often creates the impression that every major investigation eventually culminates in an arrest and trial. Reality is less predictable. Some cases remain trapped in an intermediate state where suspicion exists but proof does not. Authorities may believe certain theories are more plausible than others. Yet plausibility alone cannot substitute for evidence. The Orlandi case occupies precisely that space. Numerous possibilities have been discussed over the years. Some involve political motives. Some involve organized crime. Some involve institutional secrecy. Some suggest entirely different explanations. What none of them have achieved is definitive legal confirmation. Consequently, the judicial history of the case is remarkable not for what occurred, but for what did not occur. There has been no final verdict, no authoritative reconstruction accepted by a court, no legally established narrative capable of ending debate. Instead, uncertainty remains the dominant feature of the case. This absence of closure has profound implications. For investigators, it means continuing work despite the passage of time. For journalists, it means revisiting evidence and asking new questions. For the public, it means living with competing interpretations. For the Orlandi family, it means something even more difficult. It means living without certainty. Many criminal cases produce painful outcomes, but they also provide answers. Families may learn what happened to their loved one. They may witness legal accountability. They may eventually reach some form of closure. The disappearance of Emanuela Orlandi has denied her family that possibility. Every reopened investigation carries hope. Every new lead creates anticipation. Every disappointment prolongs the wait. The legal system has spent decades searching for a conclusion that remains just beyond reach. And so, as this chapter of the story closes, the official status of the case remains fundamentally unchanged. Emanuela Orlandi disappeared on June 22, 1983. No individual has been conclusively proven responsible. No court has delivered a final judgment regarding her fate. The investigation continues. The questions remain. The verdict has never come. Yet perhaps the most important consequence of the case cannot be measured through legal proceedings alone. Beyond investigations, inquiries, and judicial limitations lies the human impact of 4 decades of uncertainty. The disappearance changed a family forever. It shaped public perceptions of institutions, inspired generations of journalists and investigators, and became one of the most enduring mysteries in modern European history. To understand why the case still resonates today, we must look beyond the legal record and examine the legacy left behind by a 15-year-old girl whose absence continues to be felt more than 40 years later. More than 40 years have passed since Emanuela Orlandi disappeared on the evening of June 22, 1983. Entire generations have grown up in the time between her last confirmed sighting and the present day. Political leaders have come and gone. Investigators have retired. Journalists who first covered the story have been replaced by younger reporters who inherited the mystery from those who came before them. Yet despite the passage of time, one remarkable fact remains unchanged. No one has been able to provide a definitive answer to what happened to the 15-year-old Vatican citizen who left for her music activities and never returned home. For many criminal cases, time eventually brings resolution. Witnesses come forward. Evidence is discovered. Advances in forensic science reveal information that was previously hidden. Even investigations that remain unsolved for years sometimes experience sudden breakthroughs that transform uncertainty into fact. The Orlandi case has resisted that process. Instead, it has become something rare, a mystery that has survived not merely because investigators failed to solve it, but because every apparent path toward a solution has ultimately led back to uncertainty. This enduring ambiguity is part of what makes the case so emotionally powerful. Most people can understand tragedy. Most people can understand grief. What is harder to understand is uncertainty that lasts for decades. The disappearance of a loved one creates a unique form of suffering because it leaves crucial questions unanswered. Families are deprived not only of the person they have lost, but also of the knowledge necessary to understand what happened. Hope and despair coexist. Every new lead has the potential to provide closure. Every failed lead extends the waiting. For the Orlandi family, that waiting has lasted more than 4 decades. Throughout those years, they have witnessed repeated cycles of expectation and disappointment. Anonymous callers generated hope that Emanuela might still be alive. New witnesses appeared claiming to possess important information. Investigative theories gained public attention before collapsing under scrutiny. Excavations promised possible answers before forensic analysis eliminated them as meaningful leads. Renewed inquiries suggested that long-hidden facts might finally emerge, only for the central mystery to remain unresolved. The emotional toll of such a process is difficult to measure. Unlike a case that reaches a definitive conclusion, the Orlandi disappearance has never offered a clear endpoint. There has been no moment when the family could say with certainty that the search was over. Instead, the case has continued moving through time, always active, always unfinished. Yet the legacy of Emanuela Orlandi extends beyond her family. Over the years, her disappearance has become deeply embedded within Italian public consciousness. The case occupies a unique place in the country's modern history because it combines elements rarely found together in a single investigation. There is the disappearance itself, a young girl vanishing without a trace. There is the Vatican connection, which immediately elevated the story beyond the boundaries of a typical missing person case. There are the anonymous phone calls and the mysterious figure known as the American. There are the claims involving Mehmet Ali Agca and the attempted assassination of Pope John Paul II. There are theories connected to organized crime and Banda della Magliana. There are allegations involving possible institutional secrets. There are rumors of survival and reports suggesting Emanuela may have been taken abroad. And throughout it all, there's the absence of a definitive answer. Taken individually, any one of these elements might have sustained public interest for a period of time. Combined, they created a mystery unlike almost any other in modern European history. This combination helps explain why the case has remained relevant for so long. Human beings are naturally drawn to unanswered questions. We seek patterns, explanations, and conclusions. When a mystery persists despite repeated efforts to solve it, curiosity often intensifies rather than fades. Every unanswered question creates room for further inquiry. The disappearance of Emanuela Orlandi became a symbol of that phenomenon. Over time, the case evolved beyond the circumstances of a single summer evening in Rome. It became a broader reflection of society's relationship with uncertainty, institutions, and truth itself. People wanted answers. They wanted to know whether the anonymous callers were telling the truth. They wanted to know whether organized crime had played a role. They wanted to know whether any institution possessed information that had not been disclosed publicly. They wanted to know whether Emanuela had survived beyond 1983. Most importantly, they wanted to know what happened after the final confirmed sighting near the bus stop in central Rome. The inability to answer those questions has kept the case alive in public discussion decade after decade. Yet there is also a danger in prolonged public fascination. As mysteries grow larger, they sometimes overshadow the individuals at their center. Theories become the focus. Controversies dominate headlines. Arguments about institutions, politics, and investigations take precedence. Gradually, the victim risks becoming secondary to the mystery. The story of Emanuela Orlandi serves as an important reminder that this should never happen. Behind every theory stand a real person. Before she became one of Italy's most famous missing individuals, Emanuela was a daughter and a student. She was a teenager learning music, attending classes, and navigating everyday life. She had interests, routines, and expectations for the future. Like countless other young people, she was moving toward adulthood without any indication that her life would become the subject of international attention. Remembering that reality is essential. True crime stories can sometimes become consumed by speculation. The search for dramatic explanations can overshadow the human cost of the events themselves. In the Orlandi case, the most important fact remains the simplest one. A 15-year-old girl disappeared. Her family never received a definitive explanation. Everything else follows from that reality. The renewed investigations of recent years demonstrate that the search for answers continues. Vatican authorities reopened their inquiry in 2023. Prosecutors reviewed historical material. Witnesses were interviewed again. The Italian parliament established a special commission to examine the disappearance. Investigators continued gathering testimony into 2025 and 2026. These efforts matter because unresolved cases are not merely historical curiosities. They involve real people, real families, real consequences. Every investigative step reflects an acknowledgement that the truth remains important, regardless of how much time has passed. Whether the ultimate answer is ever discovered remains unknown. History contains examples of mysteries solved after decades of uncertainty. It also contains cases that remain unresolved indefinitely. At present, there is no way to know which category the Orlandi disappearance will ultimately occupy. What can be said with confidence is that the case continues to matter. It matters because unanswered questions deserve investigation. It matters because families deserve truth. It matters because the passage of time should not diminish the value of a human life. And it matters because every unresolved disappearance represents a promise that has yet to be fulfilled, the promise that someone, somewhere, will continue searching for answers. As we reach the end of this story, we arrive at the same place investigators have returned to repeatedly for more than 40 years. June 22, 1983. A summer day in Rome. A 15-year-old girl leaves for activities connected to her music studies. During the day, she tells her family about a man who offered her paid promotional work. Later, she is seen near a bus stop in central Rome. Then she disappears. The known facts stop there. Everything after that remains uncertain. The anonymous calls. The demand involving Mehmet Ali Agca. The theories surrounding organized crime. The allegations of hidden scandals. The rumors that she was taken abroad. The excavations. The reopened investigations. The parliamentary inquiries. All of these developments represent attempts to answer a question first created on that summer evening. What happened to Emanuela Orlandi? More than 4 decades later, the question remains unanswered. And perhaps that is the most haunting aspect of the entire case. Not that investigators failed to search. Not that theories failed to emerge. Not that attention faded. But that after all the years, all the inquiries, all the witnesses, all the headlines, and all the hope, the mystery still endures. Somewhere within the gap between the known facts and the unknown truth lies the fate of Emanuela Orlandi. Until that truth is discovered, or until every possible avenue has been exhausted, the story remains unfinished. The world knows her name. The world knows the date she disappeared. The world knows the countless theories that followed. But the answer remains hidden. And so the case of Emanuela Orlandi closes not with a verdict, a confession, or a final revelation, but with the same question that has echoed through Rome, through the Vatican, and through the lives of those who have searched for her since 1983. What happened to Emanuela Orlandi? For now, the silence continues. If there is a final chapter in the story of Emanuela Orlandi, it has not yet been written. More than 40 years after her disappearance, investigators, journalists, members of her family, and ordinary observers continue to confront the same reality. The case remains open. The evidence remains incomplete, and the central mystery remains unsolved. While many famous criminal investigations eventually move from uncertainty to resolution, the Orlandi case exists in a different category. It is a story defined not by the answers that have been discovered, but by the questions that have survived every attempt to answer them. Those questions are not merely details within an old investigation. They are the reason the case continues to command attention decades after the events of June 22nd, 1983. The first question is also the simplest and the most important. What happened after Emanuela was last seen near the bus stop in central Rome? Investigators know that she attended activities connected to her music studies. They know that she spoke with her family and mentioned a man who had offered her paid promotional work. They know that she was reportedly seen at approximately 7:30 p.m. near a bus stop. After that point, certainty disappears. Every theory, every lead, and every investigation has attempted to fill the gap between that final sighting and the present day. Yet the gap remains. No witness has provided an account that conclusively explains her fate. No physical evidence has emerged that definitively reconstructs her final movements. No official conclusion has succeeded in transforming speculation into established fact. A second question concerns the mysterious job offer Emanuela discussed with her family on the day. She vanished. The encounter attracted attention because it occurred only hours before her disappearance. Investigators and observers naturally wondered whether it represented a crucial clue. Was the offer genuine? Was the man connected in any way to what happened later? Or was the encounter simply an unrelated event that acquired significance only because of the tragedy that followed? Decades later, those questions remain unanswered. The available information does not establish a definitive connection between the reported offer and Emanuela's disappearance. Yet, because it was one of the last known conversations she had with her family, it continues to occupy an important place within the timeline of the case. Another enduring mystery involves the anonymous callers. Why did they contact the family? Were any of them genuinely informed about Emanuela's fate? Or were they exploiting a highly publicized tragedy? Among all the anonymous voices associated with the investigation, none became more famous than the figure known as the American. His calls transformed the case. His claims introduced the possibility of kidnapping. His statements helped create international attention. Yet despite decades of discussion, his identity and motives remain uncertain. If he possessed genuine information, where did that information come from? If he did not, why did he involve himself in the case? Those questions have never received definitive answers. Closely connected to the anonymous calls is another mystery: the alleged connection to Mehmet Ali Agca. At the time, The demand for Atka's release captured enormous public attention because it appeared to provide a motive. It offered a narrative capable of explaining why a Vatican citizen might become the target of an abduction. Yet investigations failed to uncover reliable evidence proving that Emanuela was actually being held for such a purpose. As a result, uncertainty remains. Were the calls part of a genuine operation? Were they intended to mislead investigators? Or were they something else entirely? More than 4 decades later, the question remains unresolved. Then there is the issue of organized crime. Theories involving Banda della Magliana and Enrico De Pietris became some of the most widely discussed explanations for Emanuela's disappearance. For many observers, the possibility that criminal organizations were involved appeared plausible because it seemed to connect the case to broader concerns about power, money, and influence. Yet plausibility is not proof. Although the theory attracted significant attention and generated extensive discussion, investigators never produced conclusive evidence establishing it as fact. The result is another unanswered question that continues to hover over the case. Did organized crime play any role in Emanuela's disappearance? Or did the theory become prominent simply because it appeared capable of explaining a mystery that otherwise seemed impossible to understand? Equally controversial are the allegations involving possible internal Vatican scandals. Over the years, some family members and journalists suggested that important information may never have been fully disclosed. These allegations generated intense public debate and contributed significantly to the enduring fascination surrounding the case. Yet despite years of speculation, no evidence strong enough to conclusively prove such claims has emerged from the available information. Consequently, the question persists. Did anyone within powerful institutions know more than they revealed publicly? Or did the absence of answers encourage suspicions that could never be fully substantiated? Another mystery concerns the possibility that Emanuela survived and was taken abroad. Reports and rumors circulated for years, including references to London. For many people following the case, such reports represented hope. If Emanuela had been moved elsewhere, perhaps she was still alive. Perhaps the mystery could end with a reunion rather than a tragedy. Yet once again, investigators encountered the same obstacle that defined so much of the case: the lack of verified evidence. No confirmed proof established that Emanuela was ever transported to another country. No documented sighting resolved the uncertainty. The theory remains another possibility without a definitive conclusion. The excavations carried out in 2018 and 2019 generated their own set of questions. When human remains were discovered and tombs were opened for examination, many believed that answers might finally be approaching. Instead, forensic analysis eliminated the remains as a source of resolution. Some were found to be centuries older than Emanuela's disappearance. Rather than solving the mystery, the searches reinforced a frustrating pattern that had repeated throughout the investigation. Potential breakthroughs repeatedly dissolved into dead ends. Perhaps the most profound question of all concerns the nature of truth itself within a case like this. Is the answer still waiting to be discovered? Or has the passage of time permanently obscured crucial facts? Every year that passes creates new challenges. Memories fade. Witnesses become unavailable. Evidence deteriorates. Opportunities disappear. Yet history also demonstrates that old cases can sometimes be solved through persistence, renewed investigation, and the re-examination of forgotten details. The decision by Vatican authorities in 2023 to reopen the investigation reflected that possibility. The establishment of a parliamentary commission in Italy reflected it as well. Both actions suggested that the search for truth remains unfinished. Even today, investigators continue examining testimony and reviewing information. That persistence reveals something important about the legacy of the case. Emanuela Orlandi has not been forgotten. Her disappearance is not merely a historical event preserved in archives. It remains an active question, an unresolved chapter, a mystery that continues to demand attention because no satisfactory answer has ever been found. And so, after decades of theories, investigations, claims, counterclaims, searches, and disappointments, we arrive once more at the same place. A 15-year-old girl leaves for her daily activities on June 22, 1983. She speaks with her family. She mentions a job offer from a stranger. She's seen near a bus stop in Rome. Then she vanishes. Everything that follows is an attempt to explain that disappearance. Everything that follows is a search for the truth hidden somewhere beyond the final confirmed facts. Whether that truth will ever be discovered remains unknown. But as long as the questions remain unanswered, the story of Emanuela Orlandi remains unfinished. The investigation continues. The mystery endures. And somewhere within that mystery lies the answer that generations have been seeking for more than 40 years.